The chief doctor was hired to care for a boy in a vegetative state. One day, when no one was watching, she approached the boy, and what happened next left her terrified. Sophia adjusted the strap of her white uniform as she climbed the steps of the imposing Walker mansion. It was her first day on the job, and the residents reflected the seriousness of her new responsibility. She had to care for a boy in a delicate health condition, and she knew she had to be the best doctor for her young patient. As she entered, Sophia was greeted by Mr. Richards, the boy's father, a man of medium height with meticulously combed gray hair. His posture was friendly, and his gentle gaze conveyed a kindness that matched the smile he offered. "Welcome, Dr. Sophia. We hope you feel at home here," he said warmly. "Thank you, Mr. Richards. I'm here to do my best," Sophia replied, maintaining her composure while observing the surroundings. As Mr. Richards guided her through the house, they were interrupted by the arrival of a woman. The house owner introduced her as Valerie, his wife and the boy's stepmother. She was a woman with striking features and wavy brown hair, carrying an air of arrogance that was almost palpable, like a second skin. Her entrance was abrupt, and she barely noticed Sophia. "We need to discuss Luke's medications. It seems he's getting worse," Valerie stated. "I want to take him to our family's trusted doctor," she continued, but didn't seem surprised by the boy's decline. Mr. Richards shook his head. "The treatment prescribed is the best in the country," he said, while observing the discussion. Sophia realized she was in the middle of a battle that had been going on for a long time. "I'm giving my son the best treatment, Valerie. However, you know his condition is serious," he added. But the boy's stepmother didn't seem satisfied. "Why do you never listen to me? You always listen to Luke's mother, never to me," she complained before leaving them alone. Sophia looked at her new boss and intervened. "The medications you showed me for the treatment seem correct, Mr. Richards. I assure you I'll do my best to care for your son," she promised with a sincere look. Mr. Richards smiled. "Perfect. I'm sure you'll take great care of my Luke," he said, leading her down the hallway to the boys' room. As soon as Sophia started working, Mr. Richards left her alone with his son. Sophia checked the medications and adjusted Luke's position. He looked so fragile and small in his bed with all those tubes around him. "Poor boy, I want so much to help him," she thought while working. As the minutes passed, she observed Luke lying still in bed, surrounded by softly humming machines monitoring every aspect of his life. Sophia cautiously approached, observing him. His youthful face was calm, but there was a sadness at the corners of his closed eyes that spoke of a deep internal struggle. As Sophia got used to the room's atmosphere, she saw something that made her stop completely paralyzed. Luke moved his finger, looked at the doctor, and blinked. His condition should never have allowed him to make such a gesture, even involuntarily. Sophia's heart raced. The boy seemed to be fighting to communicate. Sophia leaned in, whispering softly, "Look, if you can hear me, give me another sign," she asked, not believing what was happening. Silence returned, and then, as light as a falling leaf, his fingers moved again. "I'm going to call your family," she said, but the boy's eyes widened with fear, and the machine started beeping as soon as she mentioned his family. "If you don't want me to tell them, move your finger twice," Sophia requested, hoping she was wrong. But to her own sadness, Luke did as she asked, indicating that something was terribly wrong in that house and with that family. Sophia straightened up, looking around to make sure they were alone. "Don't worry, Luke. I'm here now. I'll help you," she murmured, more to herself than to him. A silent vow hanging in the charged air of the room. Whatever was happening in this house, Sophia was involved, determined to uncover the truth no matter the cost. She spent the first days meticulously observing every aspect of Luke's care, alert to any sign that could indicate an improvement or worsening in his condition. While organizing the medications one quiet afternoon, an unlabeled bottle caught her attention. It was small and partially hidden behind clearly labeled medications. She turned the bottle in her hands, frowning. There was no indication of its contents or origin, just a clear liquid visible through the glass. "Where did this come from?" she murmured to herself, feeling the weight of suspicion grow inside her. The door abruptly opened, and Valerie entered, her face filled with palpable anxiety. "Sophia, did you touch the medications today?" Did you notice anything different? She asked, directly eyeing the bottle in Sophia's hand. Sophia instinctively hid the bottle behind her. No, ma'am. No one told me about any changes in the medications, she replied, trying to keep her voice neutral. Valerie nodded, clearly distracted, and then left as quickly as she had entered. With Valerie out of the room, Sophia decided to investigate further. She stored the bottle in her pocket and continued her duties, but her mind was elsewhere. Why did she ask about the medication? Why is Luke afraid of the family? Who does he fear? She wondered, increasingly convinced that something was wrong. Later that night, while Luke slept, Sophia took the opportunity to do a more thorough inspection of the room. She searched drawers and closets, looking for anything unusual. In a small bag at the back of a closet, she found several empty wrappers of the same unprescribed medication she had discovered earlier. Sophia's heart raced. This can't be a coincidence, she whispered to herself. Suddenly, she heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly hid the bag under her uniform. Sophia watched Luke carefully, her heart tight with the responsibility she now bore. After a while, the door to the room opened again, and a woman entered like a whirlwind. She was someone Sophia had not yet met. Her features were sharp, with a penetrating gaze that immediately conveyed a mix of strength and latent desperation. The stranger barely noticed Sophia, her attention entirely focused on Luke. How is he? Any change since yesterday? She asked, her voice filled with urgency and hope. By the way, I'm Maria, Luke's mother, she said, introducing herself without taking her eyes off her son. Sophia, still surprised by Maria's sudden appearance, quickly responded, No, ma'am, there has been no change in his condition, she said, observing how Maria gently touched her son's hand. Luke hadn't given any more signs to Sophia, making her wonder if she had imagined everything, if those movements were involuntary, and whether she was suspecting decent people. Before they could exchange more words, Valerie entered the room. Her eyes immediately narrowed upon seeing Luke's mother by the bed. You always come unannounced, Maria. That's not good for Luke. Not that you care about your own son, Valerie shot back, her hostility barely concealed under a facade of concern. Maria turned, facing Valerie with a fierce look. I'm his mother, of course I care, and I don't need an invitation to see my own son, she retorted, her voice rising in frustration. And what have you done? Because every time I come, he seems worse, Maria added. Valerie stepped forward, her posture rigid. I'm doing everything I can. Mr. Richards trusts me to take care of our boy, she stated, emphasizing the word our in a way that clearly irritated Maria. Perhaps it's your visits that are making Luke worse, the stepmother continued. Sophia intervened, sensing that the situation could quickly spiral out of control. Maybe we could all sit down and discuss this calmly elsewhere. Luke needs peace, she suggested, trying to be the voice of reason. Maria and Valerie locked eyes for a long moment before Maria abruptly turned to Sophia. You're the new doctor, right? You don't know anything about my son or what's best for our family, Luke's mother inquired, evaluating Sophia with a look of disdain. Before Sophia could respond, Valerie interrupted. She just arrived, Maria. Don't drag her into this, she said coldly. Maria sighed, shaking her head. You know what I think we should do? A doctor won't solve the problem, she declared, looking at Valerie with a silent promise not to give up. The two women eventually left the room, continuing their discussion in low voices as they walked away. Sophia looked at Luke, who remained oblivious to the storm around him, feeling a renewed determination. She remembered the unlabeled bottles she had found, determined to investigate further. She waited for the right moment to check the room again. When the house finally calmed down, Sophia got up and began searching for anything that might be a clue. In a bathroom drawer, her heart skipped a beat when her hands found another unprescribed medication container hidden under towels. However, this medication looked different. It was more viscous and a dark green color. This medication seems strange, she murmured, feeling the weight of the discovery. Armed with new evidence, Sophia knew the next step was crucial. When her shift ended, Sophia didn't want to leave Luke's side, so she lay down on the auxiliary bed next to the boy. However, Mr. Richards entered the room with a worried fatherly expression, coming to check on his son during the night. Sophia, How is he today? Any change? He asked, appearing to verify if the boy was breathing. His gaze was concerned and filled with fear. Sophia saw that he loved his son by the way he cared, but she couldn't comment on what was happening until she was sure of everything. So she simply replied, "No, Mr. Richards, no change. But I remain hopeful that we'll see improvements," she said, quickly closing her notebook. Mr. Richards smiled sadly. "Thank you, Sophia. Your dedication means a lot to us," he said before leaving the room, leaving Sophia alone with her thoughts and doubts. Sophia looked at her notebook, then at Luke, who remained asleep. The truth was hidden somewhere among dozens of medications and family secrets, and she was determined to uncover it. The next morning, Sophia began her shift with a sense of alertness, always watching Luke, whose condition remained unchanged, a stillness that now seemed increasingly forced. Minutes after Sophia began her shift, Luke's stepmother, Valerie, entered the room with a tray, bringing a new medication bottle. "Good morning, Sophia. This is the new medication the doctor prescribed. We hope this might make a difference," she said, with a carefully neutral expression. Sophia watched as Valerie prepared the dose. Her instinct told her something was wrong, and the sudden appearance of a new medication only increased her suspicions. "Could you show me the prescription just so I can update Luke's records correctly?" Sophia asked, trying to keep her voice calm and professional. Valerie hesitated for a moment, her expression wavering. Yes, let me find it," she replied, leaving the room hurriedly. Taking advantage of Valerie's absence, Sophia approached Luke, checking his health condition. When Valerie returned, surprisingly without any document, Sophia knew something was wrong. "Sorry, I couldn't find the prescription, but I'm sure it's safe," Valerie said, a little hastily. Sophia knew she was too nervous. That seemed like a lie. "It's better to check the doctor's prescription just as a precaution," the doctor argued. But Valerie turned red with anger. "Do you think I would harm him? The doctor who passed the medication? I just want him to get better. If you keep doubting my honesty, you won't be able to work with us anymore. All I want is for my stepson to get better," she said, upset. Sophia observed the medication administration. Luke began to show signs of discomfort a few minutes later. His face contracted slightly, and his breathing became more labored. Sophia immediately began monitoring his vital signs, which showed subtle but worrying changes. "I won't allow her to give Luke any medication without confirming it with the doctor first," Sophia murmured to herself, alarmed. She decided to maintain even stricter vigilance and started noting every detail in her notebook, determined not to let anything slip by. As the minutes passed, Sophia felt the need to act. "I want to see that doctor. I want to talk to him immediately," she said aloud, echoing the words Valerie had said earlier. It was a risky decision, but necessary to protect Luke. Valerie, who had remained in the room observing Luke's health, quickly intervened. "Sophia, you're new here. Medical decisions are complex and made with Luke's best interest in mind," she said, trying to calm the doctor. However, Sophia was determined. "Luke will always be my priority. I was hired to care for him. If something is wrong, I'll do everything I can to fix it. I want to talk to this doctor," she responded, feeling increasingly like a guardian in the boy's life. Valerie left the room, saying she would find the doctor's phone number. Sophia took the opportunity to review her notes again after Valerie left to get the doctor's phone number. The tension in Luke's room seemed to increase even more. Sophia continued her vigilant monitoring, her heart heavy with worry as she awaited Valerie's response. Every sigh from Luke was meticulously noted. Every minor deviation in the monitors was a note in her notebook, a paper trail she hoped she'd never need to use but felt was essential. It didn't take long for Valerie to return, her face tense, her voice controlled. "Here's the number. The doctor's name is Dr. Thompson," she announced, handing a small piece of paper to Sophia. "You'll see there's nothing wrong." Sophia took the number with trembling hands, thanking Valerie with a nod. She immediately called, her voice firm but courteous, asking Dr. Thompson to come and examine Luke as quickly as possible. While she waited for the doctor, Sophia continued monitoring Luke's health. As soon as Dr. Thompson arrived, she felt relieved to finally meet a professional who could help her with the boy's health. Dr. Thompson was a middle-aged man with an impeccably clean coat and a gaze that conveyed professional calm. After a brief introduction, he meticulously examined Luke while Sophia observed every movement, every verification. Sophia showed Dr. Thompson the medication that Valerie had administered, which had caused the monitors to go off. The doctor then turned to her, his face expressionless. "I assure you that the prescribed medication is in line with Luke's health condition. There are no errors in the treatment. This momentary modification in the apparatus is common after administering this type of medication," he stated, closing his briefcase with a decisive click before giving a knowing look to Luke's stepmother. Sophia felt a mix of relief and frustration. Relief because there were no apparent errors, but frustration because something inside her screamed that the information didn't match reality. "Thank you, doctor. I appreciate you coming to check," she said, maintaining her composure. After Dr. Thompson and Valerie left the room, Sophia sat beside Luke's bed, contemplative. The day was giving way to night, and the mansion was sinking into deceptive calm. She remained attentive to the boy's vital signs, even after the doctor assured her that he was fine. Sophia took Luke's hand, speaking more to herself than to him. "If something's wrong, I'll find out," she murmured, a silent promise made to the boy who seemed so vulnerable in his condition. As night fell, Sophia prepared for a long vigil. It was then that it happened again. Luke, the boy who was supposed to be incapable of such conscious actions, moved his fingers, his gaze meeting Sophia's, with a clarity she couldn't ignore. Sophia froze, her heart pounding. "Look," she whispered, leaning forward. The boy's fingers moved once more. The moment was brief, almost as quickly as it came. It disappeared within seconds. Luke returned to his previous state, but it had been enough. Sophia now knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was more to Luke's condition than she had been told. Sophia began to search the room for something that would prove her suspicions about the boy's care. Then, after a few minutes of searching, she found several notebooks with Luke's name on the cover, written in a child's newly learned handwriting. She felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her. Perhaps that could explain all those unprescribed medications that seemed to be harming Luke. However, they were all locked with a key. She took the diary that seemed the oldest and tried to call Luke several times, but to no avail. The boy remained unchanged until after a few minutes of attempts, his eyes opened again. Sophia watched closely as Luke opened his eyes again, a glimmer of awareness briefly emerging. She approached, encouraging him with a soft voice. "Luke, if you can understand me, can you show me where the key to your diary is? I'm your new doctor, and I want to help you." Luke's gaze slowly moved with effort, pointing towards a small drawer in his nightstand. Sophia followed his gaze and carefully opened the drawer, finding a small golden key hidden beneath a pile of old papers and faded photographs. With the key in hand, she returned to the diary, her heart pounding with anticipation of what she might discover. She inserted the key into the lock and turned it, hearing the click that released years of kept secrets. The first pages of the diary revealed Luke's inner world with heartbreaking clarity. Sophia read the words written in shaky handwriting, where Luke expressed his growing fear of the tensions between his mother, Maria, and his stepmother, Valerie. "Mom and Valerie argued again today. I don't know why they can't just get along. Every time they fight, I feel like a part of me is being torn away," Luke wrote in an entry dated a few months before the accident that left him in a vegetative state. Sophia turned the page, finding more revelations. Luke wrote about how the frequent arguments left him anxious and how he felt like he was at the center of a battle he didn't want to participate in. "I just want everyone to stop fighting over me. It's like I can't say anything, like I'm just a piece in their game." As she continued through the pages, Sophia found mentions of several disputes over his custody. Each entry revealed more of Luke's fear and loneliness. Sophia closed the diary with difficulty, the boy's words resonating in her mind, echoing her own fears about what was really happening in that house. She sat beside his bed, the diary pressed against her chest, and looked at Luke, whose eyes had closed again. "I'll protect you, Luke. Now that I know how you felt, I won't let them hurt you anymore," she promised, her voice a determined whisper in the dark room. Armed with new information, Sophia knew the next step was to confront Mr. Richards and Valerie with what she had discovered. She needed answers, not just for herself but for Luke, who continued to struggle in silence. Preparing for the confrontation, She knew the coming hours could define Luke's future. However, at dawn the next morning, Maria returned to the house, this time determined to silence her son forever. As Sophia passed through the corridor to grab one of the medical tools intended for Luke's care, she overheard the boy's mother saying, "We have to disconnect the machines. I don't want to see our son like this anymore, Mr. Richards," said Maria, causing Sophia to freeze in her tracks. "He's suffering. We can't let this go on," she continued. Sophia stopped in the corridor, trying to listen to the conversation, her heart racing with the fear of what was to come. "I don't want to talk about this again," murmured Mr. Richards, seeming tired of having the same conversation. "I've requested that the medical team come here immediately to start the procedure. It will be painless, and we'll end his suffering. Our son can't go on like this," she finished. Hearing that, Sophia ran to Luke's room, determined to interpose herself before the professionals could perform the procedure. However, she knew that if she told them Luke was improving, someone might do something even worse to him, especially after reading the diaries. Sophia ran back to Luke's room, her heart racing and her mind whirling with the possibilities of what could happen next. The house, which once seemed peaceful, was now charged with the urgency and palpable fear of an impending decision. When she reached the room, she positioned herself in front of Luke, ready to protect him with her life if necessary. A few seconds passed before Valerie and Maria entered the room in the middle of a heated argument. Valerie, with her voice raised and firm, argued, "We can't give up now, Maria. There's always a chance for improvement. You can't decide this alone." Maria, on the other hand, seemed resolute and tired, her words exhausted. "This isn't life, Valerie. Look at him. Do you really think this is fair? We're prolonging his suffering." Sophia, observing the tension between the two, knew she had to intervene. She was about to reveal Luke's subtle improvement when he himself decided it was time for his voice to be heard. Unexpectedly, his eyes opened completely, a disturbing clarity reflected in them. "Stop," Luke said with a weak but audible voice. The two women immediately fell silent, turning towards him with expressions of astonishment. "He spoke," Sophia repeated several times, not believing what was happening in front of her. Luke looked at the doctor and said, "Call the police," he requested, his voice hoarse. Neither woman could believe what was happening. The room was enveloped in a deep silence after Luke's words, interrupted only by the soft, constant sound of the medical machines. The expressions of astonishment on the faces of Maria and Valerie reflected the incredible surprise of the situation. Luke, whose voice hadn't been heard in years, now expressed a clear and determined will, completely transforming the dynamic of the moment. Sophia, still processing the reality of what had just happened, wasted no time. She took out her phone with trembling hands and called the police, following Luke's request. While the phone rang, she looked at Luke, meeting his eyes, which showed a mix of fear and determination. Sophia immediately called the police, concerned about what the boy might reveal. She was ready to face anyone for him. She would not leave her patient in the hands of someone who wanted to harm him. Suddenly, Mr. Richards entered the room and was immediately updated on the positive change in his son's health condition. The boy's father knelt, crying in the room, while Luke continued to look alternately at his mother and stepmother, the weight of his words still hanging in the air. Maria, with tears in her eyes, slowly approached the bed, her previously resolute posture now moved by the unexpected revelation. "Luke, my son, I only wanted what was best for you. I thought you were suffering," Maria began, her voice choked with emotion. Luke, with visible effort, tried to smile at his mother, a gesture that conveyed understanding despite everything. The stepmother, who until then had been watching the scene with a complexity of emotions reflected on her face, finally spoke. "Luke, I would never give up on you, especially now." Her voice, once defensive, now sounded genuinely relieved by the clarity that the situation demanded. "But now I need to tell the truth about everything to the police," said Luke, his voice still hoarse due to his condition. "I need to tell everything," Luke began, his voice growing weaker as if every word required immense effort. His breathing became more irregular, and Sophia watched the monitors beside the bed with growing alarm. ready to provide aid if the boy's condition worsened. Valerie stepped forward, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Luke, please rest for a bit. We can talk about this later when you're better." But Luke shook his head slowly, the determination clear in his weakened eyes. "I need to talk now." His voice was barely a whisper, and his eyelids began to grow heavy, struggling to stay open. Before Luke could continue, the sounds of the machines beside him intensified, an alert that something was wrong. Sophia, perceiving the gravity of the situation, requested an ambulance to come to the mansion immediately while she began attending to the boy, administering medication to bring his blood pressure back to normal. Everyone in the room watched as Sophia cared for the boy until the medical team finally rushed into the room. As if using all his strength to wait for help, Luke's eyes closed, his consciousness slipping away before he could reveal his secret. The doctors immediately began working, instructing Maria, Valerie, and Mr. Richards to step back as they tried to stabilize Luke. Sophia, helping them, explained the boy's situation while holding his hand until she finally had to leave him in the doctor's care. Chaos erupted in the residence, especially with the arrival of the police. One of the officers approached. "We were informed that the patient wanted to make a statement. Can he speak now?" Sophia shook her head, the frustration and fear evident in her voice. "He's gone into a coma again before he could tell us anything. We don't know when, or if, he'll wake up again." The officers nodded, exchanging serious looks. "We'll need all the information possible about what might have led to this situation," one of them said, requesting that as soon as the boy improved, they go to the station to give a statement. Everyone was nervous, especially when Luke was taken to the hospital by the doctors, who assured them it would be better to treat him there. As if some of the tests detected something unusual, Sophia overheard one of the doctors saying they were about to lose the boy and that, unfortunately, his sudden consciousness might actually be an indication of his worsening condition. Sophia remembered that when her mother was almost leaving this world, she too had improved significantly. They spent hours talking as if the mother had suddenly gotten better until she passed away. The memory was still both beautiful and painful for her. "God, please don't let anything bad happen to Luke. He's just a boy," she prayed as she watched the boy leave for the hospital. The journey to the hospital was filled with tension and nerves. Sophia's mind whirled with the possible implications of what Luke had tried to say and the critical condition he was now in. Upon arrival at the hospital, Luke was immediately taken to the emergency room, where a team of doctors and nurses was already waiting. Sophia followed closely, her presence a constant beside the boy, even as he was subjected to a series of urgent tests. While the doctors worked, Sophia spoke with one of them, expressing her concern. "I suspect it may have been an accidental overdose of medications. He received several prescriptions that may not have been well coordinated," Dr. Thompson said. "We'll check all the medication levels in his blood. If it's an overdose, we'll identify which drugs are involved. However, I assure you, the medication previously administered by Mrs. Valerie was not the cause," he explained. As the test progressed, Sophia's anxiety only grew. She sat in a chair in the hallway, her hands clasped in a silent prayer, recalling her mother's sudden improvement before passing away, a phenomenon that sometimes precedes the end. "Please don't let it be the same for Luke," she murmured, a plea almost inaudible among the hospital's sounds. After what seemed like an interminable wait, the doctor finally returned with the test results. His face was grim, confirming Sophia's worst fears. "We found elevated levels of a particularly strong medication in Luke's system. It's a drug that must be administered with extreme caution. We suspect that the combination and quantity given may have contributed to the adverse reaction he experienced," Dr. Thompson said. Sophia felt a mix of anger and relief. Anger because her suspicion of negligence was confirmed, and relief for finally having something concrete to act on. "We need to investigate how this happened. It's essential to understand if it was an accidental error or something more serious," she said, her determination forging clarity in her next course of action. The doctor agreed. "We'll keep Luke under intensive observation and try to stabilize his vital signs. Your collaboration will be crucial for us. We need to notify the police." He then paused, looking seriously at Sophia. "You did well to bring him in immediately. Your quick action may have saved his life. I'll do everything I can for him." Now, you need to report everything that happened to prevent it from happening again. Sophia knew the next step was to confront Maria and Valerie. She needed to fully understand the role of each in administering the medications and ensure that such a risk wouldn't be repeated. With the medical documents in hand, she temporarily left the hospital, heading to the police station to give her statement. She recounted everything she knew to the police, from the conflicting prescriptions to the discovery of dangerous drug levels in Luke's blood. The investigators immediately began collecting all the information provided by the doctor. I hope they find the criminal who could do such cruelty, Sophia longed, seeking justice. Returning to the hospital, Sophia prepared for the confrontation she would have with Maria and Valerie. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place, and she was determined to protect Luke from any future harm. Armed with the truth and the law on her side, Sophia walked through the hospital corridors, her thoughts revolving around the shocking revelations about Luke's treatment. Her determination to protect him had never been stronger, but her resolve would be tested in ways she hadn't expected. One of the medical team professionals informed her that the boy had finally been stabilized, and that they managed to administer an antidote in time before the worst happened. Rumor had it throughout the hospital that someone had tried to poison him. I was right. Someone is lying. But who? Sophia wondered as she entered the room. Sophia was met by a visibly disturbed Mr. Richards. His posture was tense, his eyes fixed on Sophia with an intensity that immediately put her on alert. "Sophia, we need to talk," he began, his voice carrying a firmness that left no room for discussion. Before she could respond, Mr. Richards continued, "I think your presence here is bringing more stress for everyone, especially for Luke. I think it would be better if you stepped away for a while." Sophia was stunned. The suggestion that she be removed when Luke needed her most was a blow she hadn't expected. "Mr. Richards, I'm only trying to help. I've discovered things that—" Mr. Richards raised his hand, interrupting her. "I understand your intentions, but the situation is delicate. Luke needs calm, and all this turmoil isn't helping. It's better this way." Frustrated and feeling unjustly treated, Sophia knew that protesting at that moment could make things worse. She reluctantly accepted, but her mind worked feverishly on how she could continue helping Luke, even from a distance. "I'll stay with Luke until everything is clarified for precaution," she said, puzzled by the man's behavior in dismissing her at such a critical moment. As soon as Mr. Richards left the room, seeing that the doctor would continue there, Sophia approached Luke's bed, sitting beside him. She gently took his hand. "Look, if there's anything else you need to tell me, please try. I want to help you." Surprisingly, Luke opened his eyes slowly. His voice was barely a weak but urgent whisper. "Sophia is not who she seems," he said, his eyes fixed on her with a seriousness that sent shivers down Sophia's spine. Who isn't who they seem?" she whispered back, leaning closer. "Be careful with?" was all Luke managed to say before his eyes closed again, the weakness taking control of his body. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the machines monitoring Luke was replaced by a series of sharp, insistent beeps. Sophia quickly stood up, her heart racing as the monitors showed signs of maximum alert. Luke was having a cardiac arrest. The monitors displayed his heart rate and other vital signs spiking in alarm. She immediately pressed the emergency button, calling doctors and nurses to the room while she provided care to the patient. Within seconds, the room was filled with healthcare professionals moving with frantic efficiency to stabilize Luke. "He's having a cardiac arrest," shouted one of the doctors as they initiated cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Sophia was quickly moved to the hallway, where she waited helplessly, fearing the worst as the doctors fought to save Luke. The police, alerted by the hospital about the critical situation, arrived quickly. A detective approached Sophia, who was still trying to process what was happening. "Miss, we received a call from the hospital. It seems there was another poisoning attempt. We'll now get access to the security cameras and clear up the case." Sophia, still in shock, only nodded. The poisoning suspicions confirmed her worst fears about the danger Luke faced, but she never imagined it could happen inside the hospital. The police quickly accessed the security footage, closely watching the moments leading up to Luke's crisis. It didn't take long for them to discover something shocking. The images showed Mr. Richards sneaking into Luke's room and administering something into his son's forehead. Confronted with the evidence, Mr. Richards was immediately handcuffed in the hospital. Under pressure, he finally broke his silence. "I just wanted to end his suffering," he confessed, his voice choked with remorse. "I couldn't see my son like this. I thought I was doing the right thing. He was dead inside, and I knew he would deteriorate again. I wanted what was best for him. What good would it do if he woke up only to be confined to that bed again? That wasn't life. He was suffering," he concluded. Upon hearing the confession, Sophia felt a mix of anger and sadness. She thought of all the times Luke had tried to communicate, struggling to express his will to live despite the circumstances. Mr. Richards' betrayal not only put Luke in mortal danger, but also destroyed the relationship he could have had with his father. The police arrested Mr. Richards. However, Sophia didn't lose sight of the shock that overtook the faces of Maria and Valerie, who had argued so much about the best way to care for the boy that they didn't see the real danger he was in. In the following days, Luke's health improved. The boy slowly began to walk, talk, and act like a normal child. The investigations conducted by the police indicated that the medications given by Valerie had indeed improved Luke's condition. Maria, for her part, was terribly sorry for having thought about disconnecting the machines when she believed her son wouldn't improve anymore, losing faith. During the investigation, it was decided that Luke's custody would remain with Valerie, who demonstrated a deep understanding of Luke's medical needs and tireless dedication to his recovery. Maria, although remorseful, agreed that the stability and family environment Valerie could offer would be better for Luke's continued well-being. Maria decided to remain involved in Luke's life, but in a more peripheral way, ensuring that he always knew she loved him and cared deeply. As Luke continued to recover, Sophia felt a mix of relief and satisfaction for having played a crucial role in revealing the truth and protecting the boy from a potentially tragic fate. She visited Luke regularly, becoming a constant figure of support and care in his life. The relationship between them grew stronger, forged in the flames of adversity and strengthened by mutual trust. In one particularly bright day, where the sun shone high in the sky, Luke ran through the park under the watchful eyes of Sophia and Valerie. His laughter, free and full of life, was a sound that Sophia never thought she would hear again during those dark days in the hospital. Watching him play, Sophia reflected on the incredible journey from those tense moments in the hospital to here, where hope had blossomed against all odds. "He's making amazing progress," commented Valerie beside Sophia, watching Luke with a maternal gaze. "It's a miracle, considering everything he's been through." Sophia nodded, her heart warmed by the scene before her. "It's more than a miracle, Valerie. It's proof that resilience and love can really change the course of things. Luke is a fighter." Valerie smiled in agreement. "And he has you to thank for that, too. If it weren't for your determination to uncover the truth, who knows where we'd be now." Sophia felt a touch of pride, but she knew the real victory was seeing Luke so vibrant and full of life. She had made a promise to him in that dark hospital room, and she kept it, not just to protect him, but to give him the opportunity to live the life he deserved. The investigations into Mr. Richards and his arrest for his actions brought about some changes in medication regulation and the supervision of complex medical cases within the hospital. No child should go through what Luke did, and Sophia actively got involved in campaigns raising awareness about child medical safety, using Luke's story as a powerful testimony to the need for continuous vigilance and advocacy. Over time, Luke's story served as a somber reminder, but also as an inspiration. And while he ran through the park that sunny afternoon, it was clear that despite everything, Luke was finally where he was meant to be, in a place of love, care, and endless possibilities. After his arrest and confession, Mr. Richards faced the full rigor of the law. During the trial, it became evident that despite his declared intentions to relieve his son's suffering, his actions had crossed the boundaries of ethics and legality. He was convicted of the inappropriate administration of medications and endangering Luke's life, receiving a sentence that reflected the seriousness of his actions. Mr. Richards' conviction was a moment of reflection for many about the responsibility and power parents have over their children's lives. Sophia never stopped visiting the boy, even when she got a job on Dr. Thompson's team in recognition of all she had done. Gradually, Sophia was promoted to head nurse, where she found not only her professional fulfillment, but also her life's purpose. Her tireless dedication during Luke's crisis not only saved a young life, but also paved her way to becoming an influential advocate for patient safety in hospitals. Sophia was invited to give lectures at health events across the country, sharing her experience and the lessons learned from Luke's case. Her voice became an unstoppable force for reforms in pediatric medical treatment and helped implement new protocols for medication administration in various health institutions. Luke, now a vibrant teenager, had exceeded all medical expectations. With the love and care of Valerie, he not only regained his health but thrived in various aspects of life. His resilience and strength were a constant source of inspiration for Sophia, who continued to visit him regularly. They shared a special bond, forged in adversity and strengthened by their mutual commitment to overcoming challenges. Surprisingly, the relationship between Valerie and Maria had transformed over the years. What began as hostility fueled by fears and uncertainties dissolved, giving way to an unlikely friendship. Both women had learned to set aside their differences in the name of their love for Luke. Their encounters, initially tense and filled with past resentments, gradually turned into moments of sharing and mutual support. Maria, in particular, found peace in her remorse and worked to repair her relationship with Luke, cherishing every moment with her son under a new light of gratitude and respect for life. Both women realized that deep down, they wanted the best for Luke, and to do that, they had to join forces. So, they made an effort and began helping each other for the child's sake. This led to Luke finally finding the family peace he had longed for. Now, he smiled genuinely, feeling embraced by the two women who, though so different, cared for him with so much love. As Sophia looked back at everything they had achieved together, she felt deeply grateful. On Valerie's porch, on a sunny afternoon, while watching Luke play football in the yard with some friends, Sophia smiled, knowing that against all odds, they had built something beautiful from the ashes of despair. Life, with all its unexpected twists and turns, had taught each of them about the strength of the desire to live and fight for the defenseless, but most of all, to never lose faith, even when everything seems lost and there appears to be no more opportunity. They realized that in analyzing life, there is always room for faith, for a miracle, and for something beyond our understanding. They had learned that life, with all its complexities, still reserved space for faith, love, and hope. The shadows of the past had dissipated, giving way to the light of a present they never imagined possible. Each day brought with it the opportunity to celebrate life, to value each moment, and to look towards the future with hope. Watching Luke run and laugh, his energy and joy filled the air with a promise of bright futures, not just for him, but for all of them who had been touched by his journey. Sophia reflected on the many lessons learned, and how each challenge faced had shaped not only her career, but also her vision of life and humanity. Beside her, Valerie shared a look of understanding and satisfaction. They didn't need words to express what they felt. The feeling of a mission accomplished was enough on its own. Valerie, who had transformed from an adversary to an ally, was now more than a friend. She was a sister of the heart to Sophia. Together, they had navigated the most turbulent waters life could offer and emerged stronger on the other side. Maria, sitting a little farther away, watched her son with a serene gaze that only comes with acceptance and forgiveness, both of herself and others. The healing process had been long and arduous for her, full of ups and downs, but she had finally found peace. The gratitude for having Luke healthy and for restoring her relationship with him shone in her eyes every time she saw him smile. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, Sophia, Valerie, and Maria allowed themselves a moment of quiet contemplation. Luke, unaware of the challenges he had overcome, played football with the carefree spirit of someone who knows he is safe and loved and, above all, of someone who knew he was a living miracle. In that perfect moment, they knew that everything they had fought for had been worth it. Life still held many mysteries and challenges, but they would face them together with the unshakable faith that had guided every step of their journeys thus far. They were living proof that even in the darkest circumstances, light can find a way, a miracle can manifest, and love will always prevail. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing you exciting stories almost every day. Don't miss the next surprising narrative that's about to appear on your screen. We greatly appreciate having you here with us. You can now click on the links appearing on the screen right now. We have a special selection just for you, full of valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. See you there.